Pam Bondi threatens Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, and Crockett fires back with a force that no one expected. The moment it happened, the room changed. You could feel something shift, not just in tone but in the air itself, like everyone present suddenly realized this wasn't just political theater anymore. This was a line being crossed by someone who once held one of the most powerful legal positions in the nation. And the second Crockett opened her mouth to respond, you could almost sense people leaning in, because what she said next wasn't scripted, wasn't rehearsed, and wasn't filtered.
Thank the chairman. I now recognize the ranking member of the subcommittee, Jasmine Crockett.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. And I first just want to begin with a news alert. Guess what? Joe Biden is not the president anymore. So maybe we can move on. Maybe we can move into the present, because it seems like we are living in the past. And listen, these are not the good old days, like you used to sit around and your grandparents would talk to you about what used to happen. What we need to be talking about is how we are going to legislate, because I think that some of my colleagues have confused what our jobs are. And I get that we're sitting in judiciary. And so it may seem as if we are here to be litigators, but we are here to be legislators, which means that we are supposed to be writing laws, not trying to have our own trials and determine whether or not something is true or not, or whatever the case is, or who should be sued, who shouldn't be sued. All I know is that a great American hero, a good senator out of New Jersey, said something to the effect yesterday as he was shattering the record for holding the floor, a record that had been held by another racist in this country. As he shattered that, he said something about the fact that this should not be about left versus right. It should be about right versus wrong. And I am going to tell you that I want us to focus on right versus wrong. The reason that we are struggling right now in this country as it relates to people not trusting agencies, honestly, a lot of it is because of elected leaders. Let me tell you, one of the things that the chairman and I actually agree upon, we don't agree on a lot, is that we both know that there has been a sharp incline as it relates to threats upon our lives. Regardless of what side of the aisle you sit on, we both know and agree that as sitting members of Congress, we both are enduring more death threats than anybody should in this country. And I believe that it is because of the divisive rhetoric, and it is because of the selective enforcement of things. And so when we have, and I'm gonna be clear, because I had remarks and I'm going a whole other way. To have the sitting Attorney General go on, and I'm gonna call it faux news. I know some of y'all love it, but it's fake to me. To have her go on Fox News and to then decide that she wanted to send a threat to me, it was wrong. Because here it is, she is the highest law enforcement agent in this country, and people are watching and they are consuming this information, and they are believing that simply because I decided that I wanted to exercise my right to free speech, which I am not abridged from doing, that she then wanted to then politicize something that should not be politicized. I don't like Elon Musk. I'm gonna say it 50,000 times. I don't like him. I don't like that he going out there and he firing people. I think that he's a crook, because somehow the rest of us can't sit around and get whatever federal contracts we want. The rest of us can't sit around and get law enforcement and get them somehow ordained as federal law enforcement to protect him. The rest of us can't get our dealerships protected by the federal government. That is somebody that is operating above the law. For whatever reason, just because he has a lot of money, more money than everybody else. And yes, I am happy to see that on my birthday, which is what I said, there were peaceful protests around this world against him, because he is a problem. And so you never should have somebody that is sitting that high and is going to sit up here and threaten a sitting member of Congress when she knew good and well, if she watched the entire thing, that I specifically told protesters to make sure you consult with lawyers, just like I've told protesters over and over and over in the history of me advising people to go out and exercise their constitutional right. The fact that there are other sitting members that have received letters of threat from this new DOJ tells me that they They are about retribution and they are not about following the law. The reason that our party, or I won't even say our party, our country is torn apart is because we can't even agree on right versus wrong. This should not be left versus right. The only thing that we're asking is that we have law enforcement that will show up when there is an actual crime. If somebody calls and says, hey, I need you to investigate this cyber crime, or I need you to investigate this child pornography, or I need you to investigate this robbery, then we want somebody to show up, and we don't want them to look at us and act as if just because I'm black or because I'm woman, that I am not worthy of having that case investigated, because we have an administration that is continuously railing against diversity, equity, and inclusion, or we don't need people that show up that feel like diversity should not be valued. That is why we should have somebody that may show up and looks like me. The final thing that I'll say, because you've been gracious, is this. When I first became a public defender, I had no criminal defense experience. And I walked in and I told my boss, Charlie, I said, listen, you should hire me. He said, why? I said, because I'm black. Charlie looked at me like I was crazy. And I said, let me tell you something. When I walk in, I'm going to walk in with a level of rapport and understanding that maybe some of my other colleagues will not. Charlie offered me my job, and I worked my butt off, and I worked really, really hard for all of my clients, not just those that look like me, and that is what it looks like to serve. Thank you.
It was raw, it was real, and it exposed a problem far deeper than a single televised comment. What stunned everyone wasn't just that a former attorney general aimed her remarks at Crockett on national television. It was the way she did it, publicly, forcefully, in a way that felt less like disagreement and more like a warning. A subtle threat. A message sent through the largest possible megaphone. Most politicians would have danced around it, tried to diffuse it, or ignored it to avoid escalating tensions. But Crockett didn't. She went straight into it, unafraid, because she understood exactly what was at stake, and it wasn't her ego. It was something far bigger. She began by reminding everyone of something that gets lost far too easily in political battles. Threats against lawmakers aren't hypothetical. They aren't exaggerated. They aren't jokes. They're real, rising, and deadly serious. And when someone with a national platform and a law enforcement background chooses to take aim at a sitting member of Congress, millions of people watching believe that message carries legitimacy. That's what makes rhetoric like this dangerous. Not because it hurts feelings, but because it encourages the wrong people to think they have permission to do something worse. Crockett made it clear that she wasn't speaking for herself alone. She and the committee chair don't agree on much, but they agree on this. The number of threats against elected officials has surged to levels no one should accept as normal. That includes threats from political extremists, threats from unstable individuals, and increasingly, threats amplified by public figures who know exactly what kind of reactions their words will produce. Crockett highlighted that this isn't a left versus right debate. It's a right versus wrong debate. The danger is universal. Every lawmaker, regardless of party, is walking through the same fire, and when someone with Bondi's history uses her platform to target a member of Congress, it pours gasoline on the flames. But Crockett didn't stop at the threat itself. She peeled back the layers and exposed a much bigger issue: selective enforcement. According to her, the damage isn't only caused by words, it's caused by the message behind them. When powerful figures weaponize their authority to intimidate critics or political opponents, it sends a chilling message to the public. Some people will be punished for exercising their rights, while others will be shielded because of wealth, influence, or connections. That imbalance destroys trust in government faster than any policy disagreement ever could. And Crockett made sure everyone understood that this wasn't speculation for her, it was lived reality. She said plainly that she's received threatening letters from the new DOJ leadership. She framed it not as accountability, but as retaliation. She argued that this wasn't about enforcing the law, it was about sending a message: step out of line, speak too loudly, criticize the wrong person, and we're coming for you next. Whether one agrees with her or not, the gravity of the accusation was unmistakable. When sitting lawmakers begin expressing fear of their own law enforcement institutions, something in the system is breaking. The moment Crockett shifted her attention to one of the world's wealthiest figures, the energy in the room spiked again. She didn't soften her words, she didn't cushion them. She made it clear she has no fondness for Elon Musk, repeating it so no one could misinterpret her stance. She accused him of operating above the law, of benefiting from protections that ordinary Americans, or even elected officials, couldn't dream of. She argued that rumors and reports have circulated for years claiming that he receives special treatment, unique privileges, and safeguards from federal agencies in ways that raise legitimate questions about fairness. She framed these points as her perspective, backed by public sentiment and long-running speculation, but she also tied them directly into her core message: accountability shouldn't be for sale. What made this moment hit even harder was her admission that she told protesters to consult with lawyers, not to break laws, not to escalate tensions, not to resist authority, but to exercise their constitutional rights responsibly. Yet somehow that guidance was twisted into justification for threatening a member of Congress. Her point was simple: if a top official can distort something so basic into something dangerous, then what else are they willing to twist? Crockett didn't just push back on Bondi, she exposed the broader pattern she believes is happening. She warned that the new DOJ appears less interested in justice and more interested in retribution. She argued that when institutions responsible for fairness and safety show signs of political bias, the entire country suffers. People lose trust, communities feel targeted, citizens wonder whether calling law enforcement for help will get them ignored or punished, and lawmakers question whether speaking their mind will make them the next target. She then turned inward, sharing a story that felt almost out of place at first, until the deeper meaning became impossible to miss. She described her first days as a public defender, walking into the job with no criminal defense experience. She told her boss to hire her because she was black. It was bold, unexpected, and shocking for anyone unfamiliar with her personality, but the explanation she gave afterward revealed exactly why she said it. She knew that her background, her lived experience, gave her a connection to communities her office served. She knew that empathy and representation matter deeply in a system where people often feel misunderstood or dismissed. Crockett made it clear that her goal wasn't to only represent people who looked like her. It was to represent everyone who needed someone in their corner. And she did it with everything she had, working her way into becoming the type of defender who understood that justice is not abstract. It's personal, it's emotional, it's human. Her story underscored the message that diversity and representation aren't political buzzwords, they're lifelines for people who rely on fairness in the justice system. From there, Crockett zoomed back out. She tied her personal experience to the deeper message that sparked her entire speech. She said plainly that the country is falling apart not because of party differences, but because people can't agree on right versus wrong. She warned that when influential figures turn public platforms into weapons, when law enforcement becomes an extension of political grudges instead of a tool for justice, the entire framework of democracy begins to shake. She stressed that Americans don't care about internal power struggles. They care about safety. They care about justice. They care about whether someone will show up when their child is hurt, when their home is robbed, when they fall victim to cybercrime, exploitation, or violence. They want to believe that those who enforce the law do it with integrity, not with an agenda. And when high-ranking officials show signs of doing the opposite, people lose faith not only in government but in the idea of equality itself. Crockett's entire response became a warning about what happens when powerful individuals decide they can bend institutions toward personal or political goals. She described a future where communities no longer trust law enforcement, where lawmakers fear speaking publicly, where citizens hesitate to protest or express their opinions because they worry someone in power might come after them. She didn't present this as speculation, she presented it as a direction the country is already moving toward unless something changes. What made her message so powerful wasn't the anger behind it, but the clarity. She wasn't ranting, she wasn't rambling. She was drawing a map of how democracies weaken, not through sudden collapse, but through small shifts, selective enforcement, intimidation, threats disguised as commentary, and the slow erosion of fairness. Her words cut deeper because she tied them to real experiences, real fears, real consequences. She ended by circling back to the idea of service. To her, serving the public isn't about power or titles. It's about protecting the rights of the people, especially those who feel voiceless or overlooked. She reminded viewers that justice is supposed to be blind, not selectively enforced based on wealth, connections, or political alignment. She urged people to stay aware, stay engaged, and stay committed to the idea that no one, regardless of title, should be allowed to use power as a weapon. Her final message wasn't just a rebuttal to Pam Bondi, it was a challenge to the entire country: pay attention, watch how power is used, listen to who gets targeted and who gets protected. Question the motives of those who hold authority, and most importantly, don't let intimidation silence the truth, because the moment people stop speaking out, the moment fear wins, democracy loses. If you believe accountability matters, if you want more people to understand the stakes behind moments like this, make sure you hit subscribe, drop a like, and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Your voice keeps conversations like this alive, and staying informed is the strongest defense we have against abuses of power.